Hello, thank you for joining the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And as people kind of join us here, we'll get kind of started with some of our housekeeping things in just a moment. But we'll be talking about 5 of the latest scams to know about today in our Wednesday webinar. And again, we appreciate you guys for joining us today. And I'll give you a quick little roadmap of what we'll talk about today. We're going to give you a little info on SCDCA, who we are, and how we can help you. We'll talk about the common red flags of a scam, and then we'll kind of get into our 5 latest scams that we'll be discussing today. And then I'll give you some information on some steps you can take if you've actually paid a scammer. And we'll always give you free resources to help protect your information and money as well. So really quickly, we'll just kind of give you the quick overview of how SCDCA can help you. Most people know us through our complaint process. We received more than 6,000 complaints last year into our agency. We take those complaints, and most of the time we'll use a voluntary mediation process to handle those claims. And may also kind of refer some of those to other state agencies if it's something where state law kind of mandates that a specific agency handle those types of issues. We will refer those cases over to those agencies for you. But in general, I tell people all the time, it's helpful just to kind of write out kind of what's happened, the steps maybe you've taken, and what you would like to have happen. And a lot of times just kind of getting those issues, in a written out, kind of well thought out way in front of the right person at a company. Sometimes that will help you either get some kind of resolution or at least an explanation of why something may have happened the way it happened. So we can help you out with that through that voluntary mediation process. You can also report a scam or identity theft with our agency. We have an identity theft unit who will go through those identity theft situations and kind of go through their little checklist of things that have happened, things you might need to do to protect your accounts and take those steps to kind of guard further loss with those identity theft situations. And also tell people to, if you see any scams that are out there, please report them to our agency. We like to hear about them, even if you didn't fall victim to a scam. That just kind of helps us kind of realize what's going on across the state and helps us educate other people about things that are out there and may help prevent others from becoming a victim. You can background a business with our agency. So if you go to our website, we have information on complaints that have been filed with us. So you can go through and kind of get a quick summary of, issue that some other consumer may have had. And you can kind of use that as a reference point of how that business responded as well to a complaint. And you can also look up licenses with our agency. So we have all of our licensees, or most of them, listed on our website. So you can go through and kind of take a look at those licenses. And you can also look at other links for state agencies that might regulate or enforce rules on particular issues. So we have links to LLR, which is Labor Licensing and Regulation. They do a lot of contractor issues, and then Department of Agriculture does those food background checks. So you can get a lot of information like that on our website. We do free presentations across the state in person and virtually. So we do a lot of scam identity theft prevention, but we'll also do some financial literacy type topics, debt issues, debt collection issues. We do some presentations on that, credit reports and scores. So we have a whole variety of things you can request for us to come and talk to your group. And you can do that at consumer.sc.gov. And of course, everything we do is free. We also can work to help get you answers to any of those questions that might come up. We have a live person who will answer the phone at our reception desk, and they will try to get you pointed to the right direction, even if it's something that we don't deal with directly. Generally, we try to get you to where you need to be. And again, you're not going to be stuck on a phone chain trying to press 2 for one option, 3 for something else. So we have a live person to kind of get those questions answered for you, or at least get you pointed in the right place to get you those answers. All of our resources are at consumer.sc.gov, and that how do I button is the best place to kind of look for. And that's going to get you all of those resources that we just mentioned. And as we get going in our presentation, I want to just kind of start with some of our red flags of a scam. And if you've been on our presentations before, we always say that we can't kind of know everything that's going on with a lot of these scams, but there are some of those common red flags. And I wanted to start with that today because some of these things you'll hear over and over, kind of on these 5 latest scams, you'll hear some of the same things. So it's just kind of a good reminder to start off with some of these warning signs that we frequently see. And the big one is we know that scammers pretend to be somebody you know, somebody you recognize, and they do that to get your trust, to get you to, answer the phone. If they think, you're going to recognize that name on the caller ID, you're more likely to answer. It kind of works the same way with email, social media, things like that. So scammers are always pretending to be somebody else, and they do that so you don't know who you're actually dealing with. You can track them down, but they also do that to get your trust. So they want you to think that there's somebody trustworthy and somebody that you know. Then they're going to tell you there's a problem or a prize. And I always say that they get you kind of get your emotions worked up. So if you think something bad's going to happen, your emotions get going. Or if you think, you have a reason to be excited that you're going to get some kind of money or a free prize, those emotions get going, and we're not probably thinking the way we would normally. So we may not be kind of making the best decisions that way once we get excited and get those emotions going. So that's kind of why they do that. And of course, they want you to be afraid that something bad's going to happen. And that's a lot of the way that these scammers work in these situations. And then they're going to pressure you to act immediately. And the big thing with that is that time crunch. They don't want you to have time to think about it, but they also don't want you to have time to talk to somebody else and kind of realize that something's not quite right. So that's kind of why they put in that pressure to act immediately. And they know when we make, fast, quick decisions, we're probably not making the best decisions. So that's kind of that reason for why they do that. And of course, they don't want you to have time to recognize that it's actually a scam. Then they're going to tell you to pay in a specific way. A lot of times that may be debit cards, maybe, those prepaid debit cards, I should say. They'll ask for gift cards. Cryptocurrency is kind of the big thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going. We have a couple of other unusual ways that scammers act, but a lot of times the reasons they're asking for these types of payments is they know that once you hand over those details, hand over that gift card number or whatever the case may be, they can be difficult to get those funds back. So once you hand that stuff over, it's just like handing cash over in a lot of cases. So once you give them that, access to that cryptocurrency account or whatever the case may be, it can be very difficult to get that money back. And a lot of times these scammers have moved that money all across the world by the time, law enforcement or somebody else has gotten involved. So it can be incredibly difficult to get these funds back. And they've already, taken that money out of those accounts and moved them other places. So anytime you're being told you have to pay in a very specific, unusual way, that's kind of one of those big red flags to think about. And that's kind of the big talking point of a lot of these scams that we'll probably get into here today. And that first one that I want to talk about are barcode scams. And they're just kind of the latest twist that we're hearing about when it comes to a lot of different imposter scams that are out there. So in these cases, scammers are sending barcodes to victims with instructions to take them to some of the popular retail stores that are out there. It could be anything from CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, any of those big chain stores like that. And they're being told to load money onto either like kind of a reloadable gift card or a prepaid card, like a debit card, something like that. Or sometimes it's even cryptocurrency. eCash is kind of some of those terms that we hear all the time with these, but you're getting that barcode either sent to you through a text message or an email, and they're telling you to load money onto that account that's associated with that barcode. And the scammers may pretend to be a utility in some cases, may pretend to be law enforcement, a government agency, or a financial institution. They're going to claim that you've missed some kind of payment or that you need to pay them to prevent something from happening, maybe some sort of fine, something like that. And of course, when you have that barcode that's sent to you, it's going to an account that those scammers control. So it's not really going to that law enforcement agency or that court or bank or whatever the case may be. It's going directly to that account that the scammer actually has control over. And kind of the defense to a lot of these types of scams, just kind of keep in mind real law enforcement officers and utility employees, things like that, they're never going to send you a barcode and insist that you take that barcode to a store to make a payment. Just kind of think about it. If it's not the way you would normally pay for that service, it's just kind of unusual that you would be getting this barcode and being told to pay that way for this specific problem. So just kind of keep that in mind, especially with utilities. Your utility bills probably pay either by check, have it coming out of your account, your checking account, or some kind of instant payment method, something like that. So just kind of keep in mind that if it's not those normal ways that you pay, it's kind of unusual that you would be asked to pay with the barcode. And if you're getting messages or phone calls, anything like this about these types of things, just kind of keep in mind you do not want to call these phone numbers back, or you don't want to click links and text messages or emails. If they're an unexpected message that you're getting, just kind of beware of those things. You don't want to call those numbers, click those links, or do any of those types of actions that they're demanding. And if you are worried that these types of messages are real, you can use a number or maybe a website that you know is real to contact that company. I always tell people if you've got that service, you probably have that website or that app or something saved on your phone that you use regularly in order to contact those companies. Kind of use those ways to get a hold of their customer support. If it's a bank, you probably have their phone number on the back of your credit card, or you can log in, like you normally would for your online banking. And I'm sure they've got a customer support number somewhere in there. You want to look up those numbers yourself. And again, don't rely on those phone numbers that are coming in through those unexpected messages. And I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a few minutes, but if you've paid one of the scammers through this type of barcode or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're taking action quickly. So you want to contact those companies that were involved with that process. So if you're going to a specific store, you might need to kind of let people at that store or their customer service know that you've done this. You want to tell them what happened, see if they can help you reverse that payment. I know sometimes with some of these types of things, there's also a third party that may be involved if it's going on to a specific type of prepaid debit card or something like that. So you might need to reach out to the company that has that prepaid debit card if you have that information. Hopefully all that stuff would be on a receipt that you're getting at these stores if you're taking that barcode in to scan and put that money on there. So just kind of look at all those different companies that may be involved on that. And you're going to want to reach out to them very quickly, and also of course let law enforcement know. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later here at the end of the presentation as well. But I just kind of wanted to mention that you want to do these things as quickly as you can, because as mentioned earlier, these scammers may kind of drain all those accounts out pretty quickly. So the sooner you can get law enforcement involved, the better. Our second scam warning is going to be about gold bars and courier scams. And we just put out a news release about that just on Monday. So we want you guys to be kind of aware of these. And criminals are basically going out, they're tricking people into buying gold bars or maybe withdrawing cash from their banking accounts and give those things over to a courier. In some cases, that courier probably works for these scammers. And the FBI also says in some cases, these couriers may be just like a rideshare service or something like that too. So sometimes even the couriers kind of brought into the scam. They're kind of an innocent party in this as well. So these are all just kind of things to keep in mind with this. But basically scammers are telling you something's happening, you need to buy gold bars or withdraw this cash and give that cash or gold bars over to a courier. And again, a lot of times with these cases, these scammers are pretending to be a government official, maybe a bank employee, or maybe a member of law enforcement. They'll claim that there's some kind of problem with an account, maybe a computer that's hacked, and maybe it's a social security number that's been involved with some type of crime. So they're creating this problem that they're able to solve somehow. And they'll say the way you need to solve this problem or to protect your money is to give it over to a courier. So they'll tell you you've got to take the cash out of this bank account that may be at risk and then put it into, gold bars, or give that big stack of cash over to the courier so they can help keep it safe. And that's kind of that phrasing that they like to use. We have to protect this money for you. And of course, that's all a scam. You don't want to do these types of things. Again, there's no real legitimate reason why you would need to give gold bars or, stacks of cash over to a courier. That's kind of my first line on the defense here too. So just kind of keep in mind, nobody from the government, nobody from law enforcement, particularly your bank, they're not going to tell you to go and buy gold bars or to give cash over to a courier. And again, one of the things we'll talk about here in a few minutes with some of the other types of scams, they tell you that you have to move your money in order to protect it. There's really no legitimate reason that a bank or anybody like that's going to tell you you have to protect your money by moving it somewhere else. I always tell people your bank wants to keep your money, right? So that's how they make money. They might tell you to do something, put it in a different account. They might change some account numbers, something like that, but they're not going to tell you to protect your money by moving it to a completely different place, and especially putting it into a courier's car. So you don't want to give gold bars again or money to fix a problem that's been created like this. It's just not the way these types of things work. It's just also a good kind of reminder too, you never want to disclose your home address or agree to meet with people that are asking for this type of stuff. You don't want to do that. So if you're getting messages like this, just kind of cut off that contact. You may want to contact law enforcement, let them know. You can also give them as many details as you can about what's happened. In some cases, they may ask you to contact the FBI, depending on what's kind of going on. A lot of times law enforcement, even after you filed a police report, they'll ask you to contact FBI at ic3.gov. We'll have a little bit of info about that, but ic3.gov is that kind of website for the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. And they'll be able to handle some of that information for you as well. But you want to be able to give them as many details about this situation as possible. So all the names, websites, everything that they've kind of provided to you, this scammer, you want to be able to give that over to law enforcement. So hopefully they can track down kind of this problem. But again, the big thing, you don't want to give gold bars or money to a courier to fix any kind of problem. And you don't want to give them your home address or meet up with these unknown people that are asking for these types of things. Our next kind of scam that's out there, these unexpected packages, and they'll have a QR code on them. So what do I mean by that? So you might get a package, and of course you didn't order it. It shows up at your house, and there's no return information. That doesn't have that sender information. And basically what they're doing is trying to get you to click on a QR code, right? So they want you to take out your phone, scan that QR code, and it's going to go to some kind of website or some kind of thing like that that they control. And they're doing that. A lot of times they'll have some kind of message, maybe say this is a gift, and they'll tell you, to find out who sent you this gift, you got to scan the QR code and find out, right? Or maybe they'll say you've got to scan the QR code to find out how to return the package, something like that. So basically, they're not giving you very much information on that package. And in order to get those details, you've got to scan that QR code. And of course, those QR codes may go to any type of website, maybe something where it's going to download malicious software. It also could be just a phishing website. So it's looking to steal the personal identifying information, maybe like a credit card number, usernames, passwords to accounts, something like that. So, if it's claiming to be a popular online retailer, it may be asking you for all those login information, right? So it's looking like a real website. You get in there and it wants your username, your password, all that details. And of course, once you get that over, scammers can kind of take control of those accounts and, do all kinds of bad things with your account. So just kind of be cautious with that. And of course, sometimes with these malicious websites, they can also get that software in there, and they may be able to even take control of your phone or take control of your computer, whatever the case may be. So you really want to be cautious anytime you're getting these QR codes, especially if they're sent to you kind of unexpected, right? QR codes can be very helpful, but if you're not expecting it, you don't want to scan these things. And of course, you want to be aware of anytime any package just shows up at your house or your work and it doesn't include that sender info. These are kind of big red flags too. So, just kind of be cautious anytime something like that may happen. And as I just said, you don't want to scan any random QR codes because you're not really sure where they may go, right? And anytime, if you have scanned these things, or I'd just say in general too, if you're going to a website and it starts asking you, to authorize different permissions, maybe on your phone or whatever, or it's trying to access certain applications, you really want to be cautious about that. And again, if you've scanned these things and entered any kind of credentials like your username, password, anything like that, you want to go into those real websites and change all those passwords as soon as you can. You want to just kind of take those steps and try to prevent that before the scammer's been able to access any of those accounts. And of course, if you've provided any of that information, you also want to monitor your accounts as well. And we'll kind of talk about that in a second. But if you're getting these QR codes, or just in general with QR codes, you always want to know where these links are going. And I'm going to give you kind of a quick example of how that works. So what I've done here is put the little QR code that I have on the presentation, and I scanned it with my phone. And of course, you'll see at the bottom there that it's going to our website, consumer.sc.gov. So when you're scanning these things, it should show you, where that link is going to try to take you. And hopefully that looks familiar. So if you're seeing that's something that's maybe shortened or In some cases, they look incredibly long and complicated, but if you're looking at that and it doesn't look familiar, or if it just doesn't look right, you don't want to open those links because you, again, may go to a problematic website or may download malicious software. So you always want to kind of take a look at that. But you also kind of want to look too to see if something just looks a little bit off, because sometimes scammers will kind of spoof those popular websites. So may have something misspelled in there or switch letter or something like that on there, maybe additional word after the name of it or something. So again, you want to just kind of take a look at that. The best advice, don't scan QR codes that you're not expecting to see there, especially if they're arriving kind of on a package out of the blue. That would be kind of that red flag that should trigger some kind of warning sign there for you. Cryptocurrency ATMs are kind of a thing that we've been warning folks out, for a good bit now. We also hear from a lot of police departments all across the state who say that they're getting these types of, scams all across the state in their areas, with these local sheriff's departments. So you really want to be kind of cautious anytime you're instructed to take cash to a cryptocurrency ATM and load it up on an account for somebody. A lot of times, scammers will tell you go to a specific gas station that probably has one of these ATMs in it, and they'll tell you to deposit money into that account for them. And this is just kind of how it works in general. So the scammer is going to pretend to be a business, a government employee, something like that. A lot of times it's tech support. A lot of times they'll say they're tech support with your bank, which is kind of wild. So they'll say, again, there's always some kind of problem, right? So they'll say there's maybe a suspicious, unauthorized activity on your account. And you've got to, again, there's always something where you've got to move money to protect it, right? So they'll say your money's at risk. And the only way you can kind of protect it from being, maybe accessed by a hacker or something like that, they'll say you've got to protect it by putting it into a cryptocurrency ATM. And if you kind of think about that, that's just a little unusual and a little odd. So, these scammers going to either send you some kind of QR code, maybe a barcode, tell you to put it into this account at this cryptocurrency ATM. Sometimes they'll tell you to create an account, and then they're going to ask you for all those account details to be able to basically so they can access that account that you've just created. So you really want to be cautious about all these types of things. But again, they're telling you there's some kind of problem. A lot of times they'll say it's jury duty, right? They'll say you missed jury duty and you've got to pay this fine through a cryptocurrency ATM, or they're going to send the cops over to you to arrest you if you don't pay that fine. And, if you just kind of think about that for a second, that's not the way courts work, right? So just really be cautious about this type of stuff. And one of the best things you can do is really just kind of slow down. Anytime you're being told to do these things immediately or something bad's going to happen, slow down, talk to somebody else about what's going on, kind of see what they think about the situation. You want to do that before you really kind of take any kind of action. And as always, you don't want to click on any of these links or call any of these phone numbers that are in these messages, especially if you're getting these things out of the blue like that. And I didn't mention this a second ago, but it really is kind of important with this. A lot of times with these types of scams, these scammers will stay on the phone with people for hours and really work them on the phone until they can convince this person that this is a legitimate thing. So anytime that kind of situation gets ramped up to this level, it's really important to kind of take that step back and talk to somebody else. A lot of times these scammers may even know kind of general area where you live, and they'll know that place nearby that has that cryptocurrency ATM. So that kind of makes that scam seem a little bit more believable too. So they've got a little bit of information about you. So just kind of be cautious about that. And kind of one of those big things is just, really watch out for these messages that come out of the blue like this. And you always want to take that step back and talk to other people and that kind of stuff. And just kind of remember too, you never want to withdraw cash in response to these unexpected calls or anything like that. And, I said it again a second ago, you never want to use a cryptocurrency ATM to fix a problem, right? So one of the things I often tell people is, if you're getting these types of calls or messages, if they're text messages, emails, whatever the case may be, if you've never used a cryptocurrency ATM before, there's really no reason that you would need to go to one to fix any kind of problem, right? So, just kind of keep that in mind. Again, they're using these types of payment methods because it can be difficult to get that money back, right? So once you give them access to that account that you've created, or you've put that money into that cryptocurrency ATM and given them that money and that access to that account, it can be very difficult to get this money back. So again, there's just really no legitimate reason that somebody's going to call you out of the blue and tell you that you have to use a cryptocurrency ATM, especially government agencies, utilities, law enforcement. They just don't accept payment this way. So just keep that in mind, that there's really no legitimate reason to use one of these cryptocurrency ATMs to fix any kind of problem. That's not what they're kind of created for. So that's kind of the best way to avoid those types of scams. And the last one of my top 5 here are these kind of repeat scams. And what do I mean by that? I mean, just somebody falling victim to a scam a second time. So scammers know that you've fallen victim to one scam and they're going to hit you up a second time, right? So we call that round 2 sometimes. And we know that consumers who fall prey to a scam, they can be targeted a second time. And then a lot of times these second scammers are going to offer to kind of help you get that money back that you lost in the first time, right? So the big thing is to ask yourself, why would this scammer know I lost money? Are they asking for more money to recover that lost money? And, you know, again, they're always claiming to represent some kind of government agency, law firm, law enforcement, those types of things. So, you know, if you're fall victim to one scam, just kind of really start asking a lot of questions if you're getting calls about that, you know, initial scam. And we'll kind of get into some of that. But I wanted to start with an example. And this is a notice that the FBI put out in August. And in this case, these scammers are acting like a law firm that's supposed to help cryptocurrency scam victims. And, you know, this case, they're saying they're going to help you recover those lost funds. And then they've got a whole set of things that they go through, and they're targeting people who've already lost money through one cryptocurrency scam, and they're hitting them up through this other scam that promises, hey, we can help you get that money back that you lost. And I just clicked the link to that. Sorry about that. That's the exact same thing I was showing you there. So if you downloaded the slides, you'll notice that that will kind of open up some of those alerts, so you'll be able to kind of get more information if you're interested on that particular scam. But kind of our red flags to watch out for, of course, would be that caller has knowledge of the exact amounts, the dates, the transactions that, you know, you've been involved with, and you've probably sent those over to your scammer. So really just kind of ask yourself, how did they know this information? Did I report it to law enforcement already? Or, you know, how would they know, right? They may refer to a cryptocurrency recovery law firm, which is that warning that we just sent there. And they'll say, of course, that they can help you get that money back. A lot of times they'll try to get you to go onto group chats on WhatsApp or some other messaging type of service. And of course, they've got reasons why they say they need to get you on there. They may say that it's, you know, some kind of secrecy or safety issue that I need to get you onto this other messaging app for, you know, those encrypted messages that they promise with some of those apps. So they'll say there's some kind of secrecy issue why you need to use that chat. And sometimes they may even say we need to use this chat to be able to use it as a group to get you in touch with other people, right? So they may say that they've got to put you in that group chat to get you in touch with a foreign bank, some kind of third party that's going to help you get that money back. And of course, they're going to start asking for money. So they'll say, you know, you've got to pay some kind of fees. Maybe a foreign government needs fees to help you move that money over into an American account, something like that. So, you know, sometimes they may even start asking for all kinds of information about you to say it's to help verify your identity, any of those types of stuff. But they're trying to put you in touch with other people who are then going to start asking you for either personal identifying information or money. So that's kind of that big warning sign to watch out for. And of course, if you're getting these types of messages unexpectedly, you want to kind of be cautious and raise those red flags, right? Especially if you haven't talked to somebody about that scam. So if you haven't reported it to police, anybody contacting you about all those details, of course, did not get those details through a legitimate way. So you kind of want to raise those red flags about that, especially if you haven't reported it. And also a big thing to remember with these types of things is just law enforcement does not charge money to get, you know, stolen funds back to you. It's just not the way law enforcement works. They're going to help you get your money back as best as they can, and they're not going to charge you to do that. So anytime you get any kind of request for something like this, if they're saying they can help recover, lost funds or something like that, and there's a fee, of course, that's the big kind of warning sign with that. But especially if they're talking about we can help you get these cryptocurrency recovered funds back. Just kind of beware of that. And I'll put this last thing on here, something that the FBI uses a term for, and they encourage scam victims to use what they call a zero trust model. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Have zero trust in somebody until you can absolutely verify everything about that they're saying. So with these types of scams in particular, the FBI recommends using that zero trust model, and it kind of assumes that nobody should be trusted by default, and all of their requests have to be verified. And again, if you need to verify all those types of things, you would need to contact law enforcement directly yourself. So if they're saying they're with the FBI, you need to look up all those contacts for the FBI yourself. And it's kind of important to note too with some of these scams that they will take names and stuff like that of actual law enforcement officers. I know some of our sheriff's departments across our state actually will post on social media from time to time saying, hey, we've received calls from people who think they're dealing with officer, so-and-so. So those scammers are good at kind of finding those names of deputies sometimes and other police officers and kind of pretending to be them, unfortunately. So just always kind of verify all that information. You want to look up those contact details yourself. Use those tried, true, trusted methods of contact. So look up all that information yourself and know it's real before you kind of make contact with somebody. And one of our number one rules, you always want to verify identities, right? I've been saying that over and over. So you don't want to give over any personal financial information to a person whose identity you cannot verify. So this is important to keep in mind, especially if you're getting contacted out of the blue. You want to make sure you're verifying all of those details about this person before you give them any information, any money, anything like that. And if you suspect you paid a scammer, we've got a little bit of information for you. And we mentioned some of this just a few minutes ago. You always want to act quickly, right? So you want to get a hold of law enforcement as soon as you can, or you want to contact that company that you used to send the money. So we kind of used some of those ATMs and those store purchases a minute ago. So you kind of want to reach out to all those companies that may be involved. You want to tell them what happened and let them know that you're asking for help reversing those payments. Sometimes they can help you. It just kind of depends if that money's still sitting on that account that's been created. So if it's a, gift card account or prepaid debit card account or whatever the case may be, they need to get into those accounts as quickly as can and see if that money has been removed from it. Sometimes they can help you kind of get those funds reversed and get that money back to you, but you want to take that step as quickly as possible. You also want to contact your local law enforcement immediately and ask to file a police report. Sometimes you may need to just let them know it needs to be an information report. You want to get that on record with them. That's a great step to take. You want to do all those things as soon as you can. And again, depending on what happens, sometimes those local police departments may ask you to contact the FBI. Usually that's ic3.gov. If you're actually talking with your local law enforcement officer, kind of walk through steps with them, what they would recommend. But a lot of times with the FBI, especially if it's involving cryptocurrency, things that may be happening in another part of the world, the FBI would be able to at least get involved and get some of that information so they can put it in their databases. ic3.gov is that website that they recommend for a lot of that as well. And we like to have that information here at South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs as well, so we can kind of monitor what's going on across the state. And this is our phone number and our website, consumer.sc.gov. And that phone number is 803-734-4200. And again, you can report those scams even if you didn't fall victim. And we kind of use that information to help educate folks throughout the state. And I like to remind people whenever we talk about these types of issues that we're not law enforcement, so we can't go out and bless some of these scammers. I know everybody wants us to go down and crack open doors for this type of stuff, but we are not law enforcement. But we can kind of use that information that you give us maybe to help you kind of walk through those steps that you might need to take if it's protecting yourself from identity theft, kind of going through those accounts, seeing what you need to do to prevent further damage. So we encourage you to file those reports with us, and we can kind of help you on that financial end, kind of going through those things that you might need to do to protect yourself from having further harm from being done to those accounts. And of course, as I mentioned, it kind of helps us monitor what's going on and hopefully help educate other people across the state, and it might help other people from becoming a victim. And I do want to just kind of remind you of some of the little roadmap to avoid scams. So, no matter what's going on with these scammers and how they reach out, you don't want to answer these calls, respond to text messages, especially if they're from numbers that you don't know. And you want to block these as soon as you get them, right? So I know I got several text messages this morning from things that were obviously scammers promising me a very easy work from home job. Hit those block buttons and things like that on your phone. You want to block all those numbers as they come in. You don't want to reply to them. So that just kind of tells scammers that it's an actual live phone number and that you're somebody who's going to respond. So they'll probably target you with other scams kind of later down the road. Just kind of be cautious of that and keep that in mind. And of course, you don't want to give personal financial information to a request that you didn't expect. We always say legitimate businesses don't do this, right? So just don't give that personal financial information over if it's a request that you aren't expecting. We mentioned this earlier and throughout the presentation, but you don't want to fall for those high pressure tactics. So if somebody's telling you you have to make a decision right away or pay right away or give your information over right away, that's usually a scammer. Legitimate people don't really kind of make you pay right away like that. There's not that immediate thing where, you're going to go to jail if you don't pay in an hour or something like that. That's just not the way courts and things like that work. So, once those high pressure tactics kick in, just kind of raise that red flag and know that's one of the signs of a scammer. And our next thing is, again, those forms of payments that scammers like to use. Just kind of beware anytime somebody's asking for gift cards, prepaid debit cards, cryptocurrency, wire transfers, all those types of things. Again, if it's not the way you normally pay, that's a little unusual. So that should kind of raise that flag and make you kind of think about that request a little bit more. But again, they like those gift cards, prepaid debit cards, cryptocurrency, because it's money that they can take quickly, and then they can convert it and take off with that money. It's a little bit harder to track sometimes, but a lot of times once law enforcement kind of catches up, those scammers have already taken that money out and they've moved it all across the world. So just kind of beware anytime somebody's asking for those gift cards, cryptocurrency, and things like that. Kind of our last little tip here with the roadmap is just kind of stop and talk to somebody you trust. I know we mentioned that earlier, but before you do anything, if you're not quite sure that something's off or whatever, talk to somebody, family, friend, neighbor, law enforcement, whatever the case may be. Find somebody you trust and talk to them about what's happened. And a lot of times I tell people just saying stuff out loud sometimes to somebody else. You might hear yourself saying it and then say, well, that's not quite right. So anytime you can talk to somebody else, that's going to be a great thing. And again, a lot of times it's just taking that step back, and it's that, time issue. So you don't want to act immediately. And if you stop and talk to somebody else, it's at least that kind of few minutes or whatever that the case may be. And it kind of takes you back a little bit and gives you that breath away from that pressure point that they've been talking to you about. And you kind of realize what's going on and can kind of help you spot these scams. And as always, we like our free tools to protect yourself, things you can do to help protect your information. One of the easiest ways that you can do that is kind of take advantage of those features on your phone to report and delete phishing attempts. If you're getting text messages, this is one of the junk messages that I got, somebody claiming to be the USPS parcel service, right? And the website is completely not what the postal service would be. And then there's all kinds of crazy stuff on the message as well. But take advantage of those little report junk buttons. In this case, I actually opened the message. I knew it was a scam before I opened it, but you open up the message and you see the report junk at the bottom. Go ahead and report that. And you can also, if you haven't opened the message, usually you can kind of swipe over and hit that delete and report junk if you're seeing those things pop in. And again, those are great things you can do. And it's basically just going to let your phone carrier know what's going on. People always tell me, ask, who am I reporting this junk to? It's your phone carrier. You're basically just letting them know that something's not right with the sender and they need to take a look at it. That person's sending spam, and hopefully they can take those steps to prevent those messages from those people from going through. And some actions can be taken, to get them to stop sending this many messages to all of us out here. And here's some little quick other tips that you can take advantage of to avoid those unwanted texts, things like that. Consider those call blocking apps and services, right? A lot of phones have features that are built into them, but just kind of take advantage of all those different things that are out there that might help you reduce all the phones and text message things that you're getting that go through and get to you. But you also kind of want to think carefully about giving out your phone number. A lot of websites, if they've got the forms with your phone numbers, or if you're going through stores, putting in phone numbers, all those different types of things, a lot of times you're giving them permission to call you. So just kind of really consider who you're giving your phone number out to and on those websites and things like that. Because a lot of times with websites, you may not quite be sure how they're going to use all that information. So you also want to kind of go through all those privacy policies, right, before you submit that information. Because you may be giving them permission to send you text, or you may be giving them permission to sell your phone number to other people. So just kind of know what's going on with all of that. You want to find out what their policies are before you give them your information. And these are pretty good links, websites to keep in mind that offer a lot of resources. And I'll probably click on this first one here in a second, but it's with the Federal Communications Commission. And they've got a lot of info on stopping unwanted robocalls and texts. It also has some info on call blocking resources for different phone providers. So I'm going to click on that real quick and just kind of show you where to find that. So if you pull up this page on their website, if you scroll down a little bit, like I said, they've got their tips there, but then they have these call blocking resources. So you can kind of scroll through, and I like to give people this all the time because it's got a lot of different phone carriers on there. So if you're using a wireless or mobile, or if you're using a landline, they have all kinds of different links in there that might kind of help you find those kind of call blocking services or things that can kind of help you avoid getting some of those scammy calls and messages. So that's a great resource to take advantage of. And I've also got the link to the Federal Trade Commission here, and they've got some information on blocking calls, avoiding phone scams, things like that. So that's a great link to use. So if you've downloaded the slides, you'll be able to get into these through those slides. So you should be able to click that. If you're watching online and not able to, you can probably take a screenshot real quick and have those links and type them in later. But those are great resources to take advantage of. And we also encourage folks to kind of monitor your financial accounts closely. One of the best things you can do is set up all those different account alerts, right? So you can go into your bank, your credit card provider, whatever the case may be. You can set up all kinds of alerts that are usually free. So they can be anything about a new purchase on your card. You'll get a text message about it or an email. Might be something telling you your balance has gone below a certain amount. You really kind of go into those features, see what they offer, see what works for your lifestyle, and really take advantage of all those alerts. And it will just kind of help you notice if something's happened kind of before it's a problem, right? So the quicker you can catch any of these things, the better, and it'll help you kind of report that to your bank or credit card as soon as something happens. And one of the other things you want to do is just kind of make sure you're looking at your credit reports quite regularly, at least once a year is kind of the recommendations for that. But you want to go through at least once a year and check for inaccuracies. You also want to check for those signs of identity theft or those things that something's not quite right, right? So if somebody's creating maybe a credit card account or taking out a loan in your name, or sometimes you might even see that they've applied for some kind of utility service. So you can kind of go through those things on your credit report, and you want to make sure everything is accurate and it actually belongs to you. And annualcreditreport.com is the site that we recommend using, and that's because it's kind of authorized by federal law. Federal laws kind of set up the rules that they have to operate by. Some of the free sites that are out there may be using your information in some way. They may be trying to sell you a service or giving information about you to other companies who are going to try to get you involved with the service or something like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Annualcreditreport.com is going to give you access to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and you can take a look at those. They will offer you those at least every week for free. You'll have access to all three of those every week. But you don't want to go in every week and look at that. That would probably drive you crazy. So, at least once a year, a couple of times a year is kind of best practice with that. So go through those, make sure everything is accurate. And if you're seeing signs of identity theft, you can put a fraud alert in place, and it will ask for a year. You can extend it for 7 years if you need to. If things are really bad and you're kind of worried about all that, you can extend it, but this fraud alert is basically going to tell businesses that they need to take a closer look. If somebody's applying for a line of credit, they need to take extra steps to verify that it's actually you. We say one call, that's all. So if you call Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, go to their website, put the fraud alert, they're going to notify the other two major credit bureaus that you need this fraud alert put in place, and they'll do that for you. So you just notify one of them, and they'll contact the other two and put that fraud alert in place for you on those credit reports. The security freeze is something that we really encourage everyone to do. And again, it's free to place. It's also free to lift. So what you're doing is you're kind of stopping access to your credit report and the information that's on that file. So you're preventing other people from being able to open up any kind of new lines of credit. If you end up needing to maybe apply for a credit card or get a car loan, something like that, you can lift it. You'll need to notify all the credit bureaus to put this freeze in place, where to lift it. So you go to Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, their websites or their phone numbers. You go to them, put that freeze in place, and anytime you need to open up a new line of credit, or, I always tell people I had to get a new internet provider. So when I did that, I had to lift my freeze off my credit report so that provider could run my credit. Once they did that, decided they were going to send me all the equipment to get me on the line, put that freeze back in place. And it's a great tool you can do. Again, it's going to stop other people from using your information. So if your information's out there in a security breach or something like that, it can really be a great tool to prevent people from using those details. So only when you are ready to use your credit, and apply for new lines of credit, that's when you lift it. Right. So again, you have to go to each of the 3 credit reporting agencies to do that: Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Again, it's a free tool that you can take advantage of, and it will really help protect your information. I also want to encourage you, if you need more information about anything, especially credit reports, we've got that information on our website, and you can also request these brochures free of charge. We'll send up to 50 all across the state, so we'll box them up and send them to you, and those are free to request from our agency. So if your church, library, community group, whatever the case may be, needs our Ditch Pitch, our scam prevention guide, our identity theft prevention guide, and again, our credit report book, we'll send those over to you for free, and you can find those applications on consumer.sc.gov. I also encourage everybody to follow us on social media if you're on it. So we're on Facebook, X, Instagram, and I always like to mention our SCDCA YouTube channel whenever we're doing our presentations, because we put a lot of these on YouTube. So if you've missed something, or if you want to go back and double check some information or something, you can go to our YouTube channel, and we have a lot of those resources available there. I hope everybody's able to have a good rest of your day. We'll let you get going, and we hope that you'll be able to join us for another Wednesday webinar coming up.